Welcome to Plain Civics. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joe Ulery.
And I'm Bobbi Fisher.
And our goal is to break down how government works so you can make the government work for you. Today we are doing Season 2, Episode 28. And Bobbi, before we get started, we should mention to our listeners that we had planned on doing an episode on political parties. We've been talking that one up for a while, and it's a good one. But given some of the events that have been happening in our nation, specifically in Minneapolis, we thought it would be a good time for us to pivot and do some reminders of some civic lessons that each of us really could hear and get a refresher on. So we'll do that in just a second. But before we get there, Bobbi, let's do Ben Franklin's virtues.
For the next several episodes, we will present the civic virtues that Benjamin Franklin, one of our most significant founders, thought to be the most important. He thought these civic virtues, or qualities that help individuals become better people and contribute to a stronger society, mattered just as much as public action. As we work our way through these, think about how these civic virtues track in your own life. The first civic virtue is silence. Franklin said of this virtue, quote, "Speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation," end quote. When have you thought before speaking? How did being thoughtful with words help you or someone else?
Okay, so that is Ben Franklin's virtues. We've got 13 to cover. Silence is the first one.
Before we go on, I'll mention, since we already had the next episode recorded, that one is also going to say that it's the first of the 13 virtues. So just keep in mind that the next episode, it's really the second one. So
yeah, and that happens. We have the ability to pivot quickly, and we can be nimble with how we record, and we hope to be nimble on what's happening and tie stuff that's happening into what we're seeing in real time in the nation. All right, so with that update, it's time to get to work. And Bobbi, let's review some important concepts.
And now our feature presentation.
And that is the title of this episode. When asked by a woman outside Independence Hall what type of government the men inside had created, Benjamin Franklin is said to have replied, quote, "A republic, if you can keep it," end quote. A republic, in fact, a democratic republic, where the citizens, or the people, hold supreme power. That's the democracy part. People hold the power that they exercise through their elected representatives. That's the republic part. Their representatives are elected by the people in periodic free elections that, as specified by the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 4, gives state legislatures the task of determining how and when congressional elections are held, how voters can register, and where they can cast their ballots. Franklin's reply, quote, "A republic if you can keep it," end quote, is a reminder that a self-governing republic depends on the active, informed participation and protection by its citizens to survive, highlighting its fragility and the constant responsibility to uphold its founding principles. A republic isn't self-sustaining, and it requires constant effort, and that is very important to remember.
It's like having a baby, and just because once the baby's born in its infancy, you don't just walk away. You have to nurture and constantly give attention.
So in addition to a republic not being self-sustaining, civic virtue and dedication from citizens to prevent corruption, overreach, or collapse, serving as a timeless warning about the price of liberty. Those are all important. The framers created a democratic republic because they didn't want to be governed again by a monarch or a king, nor did they want a dictator or absolute ruler. The framers also included protections for the citizens in the Constitution and in the Bill of Rights, including due process and habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is addressed in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. It states that the privilege of habeas corpus, quote, "shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it," end quote. Suspending habeas corpus is only supposed to be ordered by Congress. Habeas corpus limits the power of the government to suspend the right to challenge unlawful detention of an individual, and to my knowledge, up to this point, habeas corpus has not been lifted. Keep that in mind. And when we talk about in just a minute, due process also.
The point is the people that can lift it are in Congress.
When suspended, individuals can be detained without a court order or a hearing to determine if the detention is legal. This can lead to prolonged detention, even indefinitely, without any legal review to ensure the detention is justified. Habeas corpus means that you have a right to know the charges against you. So habeas corpus is a legal writ that allows you to challenge your detention, requiring law enforcement to produce the prisoner before a judge and justify their confinement. It means that a person may not be subjected to any legal proceeding, such as arrest and imprisonment, without sufficient evidence having already been collected beforehand, because it must be available for exhibition in a public hearing within hours or at most days after arrest. Any charge leveled at the hearing thus must be based on evidence already collected, and an arrest and incarceration order is not lawful if not supported by sufficient evidence. A writ of habeas corpus means a formal order has been given to someone in authority to present the person to the court to see if they are being lawfully detained. The writ of habeas corpus is a crucial part of due process. While they are distinct legal concepts, habeas corpus acts as a fundamental safeguard for due process, particularly when it comes to challenges to detention. Due process of law is found in both the 5th and the 14th Amendments. It ensures fairness and justice by requiring governments to follow established legal procedures, such as habeas corpus, and respect fundamental rights before taking away a person's life, liberty, or property. In essence, it means that everyone is entitled to a fair hearing, a chance to defend themselves, and a just outcome when facing legal action. Due process protects individual rights, including the right to a fair trial, the right to be informed of charges, and the right to present a defense. The reason I put these in is just a reminder. We hear every day about supposed illegal immigrants being rounded up and taken, like from Minneapolis to Texas, and they've not been given any of this due process. And it sounds like their habeas corpus, like it's been suspended, because they don't know why. In fact, some of them we know, once they do get legal help, have been found that they're here legally or they're actually a citizen. So this is not the way things should be happening in the United States.
And regardless if we're talking about immigration or murder or bank robbery, the crime someone is accused of, they need to know what they're accused of and what the evidence is.
It should be the same no matter what.
It all works the same. Right. Yes, this happens every day in courtrooms. That's the way it works.
And I know we keep hearing, well, they're the worst of the worst, and we're rounding up the worst criminals. Sometimes you hear they're here illegally. That's a crime. I just want to point out that the first illegal entry is only a misdemeanor. Now, if they've been here before and been removed from our country for illegally entering, if they're captured a second or third or whatever time, that does become a felony, but it's the lowest level felony that there is. It's not like being a murderer. Like the maximum sentence I believe I read was like 2 years and a fine. Just being here illegally, yes, that is a crime, but we're not talking the same realm as a murderer or someone, that's done some serious crime.
And being here undocumented is not a crime. They're going through the process.
If they're here undocumented, it is, but if they're in that process, which we also hear happening, I'm glad you pointed that out, that means they're already in the system and they're trying to do the steps they need to do to get legal status. So yes, we hear a lot of, they were in line at the Immigration Bureau to check in and they're getting taken away.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the next part. Both undocumented immigrants and those in the U.S. on special visas have certain rights under the U.S. Constitution and laws. While their rights might differ from those of you and I, or the citizens, they are still entitled to protections like due process and habeas corpus. Undocumented immigrants are protected by the 5th and 14th Amendments, which guarantee due process and equal protection under the law. This means they have the right to a fair legal process if their life, freedom, or property is at risk. They have the right to remain silent when questioned by law enforcement or immigration officials and should not be compelled or made to answer questions about their immigration status. Undocumented immigrants have the right to access courts, to seek legal remedies, or defend themselves in legal proceedings. Immigrants here on special visas also have these rights. It's crucial to understand that immigration laws and policies are complex and can vary. While some consider immigration to be a privilege, the U.S. Supreme Court has established that immigrants, regardless of their status, are entitled to these constitutional rights and protections. And I still see people arguing, they're here illegally, they don't have any rights. That is not correct.
I also see people arguing that the undocumented workers are getting all of these government benefits and checks every month from they're not.
They can't. They don't have
They're
documents.
Undocumented. Yeah.
Right. They don't have their documents so that you and I would need to go and get those benefits.
And that's not an easy process when you do have the documents.
Right. I also want to point out, I looked up the law surrounding overstaying a visa, and that is also a civil defense.
Right.
It's a misdemeanor. It's like being your first illegal, if you're captured as an illegal immigrant. It's basically the same as if you're caught in your car and you've let your license or your registration expire.
Two completely different courts. There's criminal courts and there's civil courts.
Exactly.
Very different.
So America is a nation based on an idea expressed in the Declaration of Independence that all people are endowed, quote, with certain unalienable rights, end quote, and that the purpose of government is to, quote, to secure these rights, end quote. Rights are at the center of Americans' national identity and why so many people want to make America their home. It is up to we the people to make these rights continue to be enjoyed and not infringed upon by the government. One of America's greatest judges reinforced this learned hand, said, quote, liberty lies in the hearts of men and women. When it dies there, no constitution, no law, no court can save it, end quote. Now let's move on to the First Amendment. We're not going to talk about all of it, so I'm leaving out the first part, which is the religion part. But the First Amendment says, quote, Congress shall make no law, that's where the religion part goes in, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
And so what? There's 27 amendments, and this is the very first one. It's important.
And so why did Madison and the other framers put these 5 freedoms, including the religion, in the First Amendment? Well, because they felt these rights are more important than all of the others because they are essential to having a democratic government. Without freedoms of speech, press, assembly, and petition, citizens cannot be fully informed about important issues or take action on them. When the Bill of Rights was being proposed, the right to assemble, for example, was considered by some to be trivial and not necessary. But others pointed out that if the government could deprive the people of the right to assemble, and I would even add to that to redress of grievances, in other words, to speak out and let your voice be known, then it might deprive every other privilege. Peaceable assembly means that citizens do not have the right to riot, block public streets, or take over public buildings. As a general rule, citizens have the right to use public property such as streets and parks for assemblies and demonstrations. Peaceful assembly and petition are just one way citizens can show the government that they do not agree with policy or actions of the government. Without freedom of expression, citizens would not have the free exchange of ideas and information necessary to make sound political decisions. In an essay titled, quote, Who are the best keepers of the people's liberties, end quote, by James Madison, which was published in the National Gazette in December of 1792, Madison stressed that, quote, mankind are capable of governing themselves, end quote, by responsibly electing their government representatives and then holding them accountable to the purposes of their constitutional government. Madison continues by stating that first among these purposes was protection of the natural rights of the people who had established a government, and first among the responsibilities of citizens citizens was continued vigilance and action in support of their rights. Madison also said the people are, quote, the best keepers of the people's liberties, end quote. In order to enjoy their rights, they must be ready to defend them. The people must be able to express their concerns about a government that they feel is not protecting their rights and liberties. So I paraphrase some of it, but that's the essential point that Madison was making in 1792, is it's up to us to express the concerns that we have. A couple months ago, political commentator Bill Maher said, quote, "What good is making America great again if you end up losing the America part," end quote. This hit me hard. He makes a good point. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, you surely have to see that things in our nation right now are not going well in quite a few ways. Some find much of what is going on in our government completely foreign. Others may see it differently and may even see this as an exaggeration. The thing is, no matter where you stand, you surely have to agree that we've entered into a dark time as a nation, especially after the recent murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by ICE in Minneapolis. Many norms, and I would argue humanity itself, have been pushed to the wayside by some of this administration's actions. For many of us, the current climate of political partisanship and nastiness is jarring. Political polarization and civil discourse may be worse than any other time in our history, but none of this is new. Our nation has been in this situation several times before in our almost 250-year history. We have come through those dark times before, but we all play a part in overcoming these dark times. Modern historians remind us of the many times throughout our history where we were vulnerable to fear, bitterness, and strife, but we came through it. Historian John Meacham points out that in the best of times, the people's witness, protest, and resistance can combine with the leadership of an American president to lift us out of dark times. If, however, a particular president fails to advance the national story, or worse, moves us backward, then those who witness, protest, and resist must stand fast and work for a better day. In an essay entitled, quote, "Who We Choose to Be, a Reflection on the Character of Veterans, a Shared Culture of Service," by Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, who's retired, he says, quote, "What we see in our worst moments is not who we have always been, but it is what happens when we forget who we aspire to be. Our character, our identity is not inherited. Like our democracy, it must be renewed. The story of America has never been one of perfection. It has been one of persistence, self-correction, and conscience. Who we are is not fixed, but who we become is a choice." And in addition to historian John Meacham, I would also point out here, if you're not following Heather Cox Richardson's podcast, Letters from an American, or reading it online, she also posts it on, I think it's on Facebook or one of those, maybe Instagram. She also is a modern historian that keeps us apprised and tries to point out not only what's going on today and how we can deal with it, but how things have happened in the past that have been similar and how the people dealt with it. Whenever our nation has been in times of economic and social stress, such as we are today, extremism, racism, nativism, and isolationism are driven by the fear of the unknown and tend to increase sharply. Meacham points out that, quote, "Much of the vibrancy of the American story lies in the courage of the powerless to make the powerful take notice." And I think that just really stood out to me right now.
I had a friend that was saying to me the other day, I want things to change. I don't know what to do. The people are so powerful. You have all these rich people that are flooding in donations to keep people in power. And he's frustrated because he doesn't feel as if he has a voice. And he's like, what are we supposed to do?
There are lots of things that we as individuals can do. Some can do more than others. But even if you just do one thing, even if you calls or whatever, that's still something where you might feel like you're the least powerful, but that's still showing your power.
Yep. And we're going to explain here in just a few minutes on how you can do that.
Fear plays a large part in our lives, whether it is our personal lives, social lives, or politically and economically. Fear fuels anxiety and anger. The opposite of fear, though, is hope. And hope breeds optimism and a sense of well-being. Fear divides, hope unites. unifies. He also points out that, quote, the measure of our political and cultural health cannot be whether we all agree on all things at all times. We don't, and we won't. Disagreements and debate, including ferocious disagreement and exhausting debate, are hallmarks of American politics, end quote. And if you just think back to our early episodes on the Constitutional Convention and the many, many debates they had, sometimes about the same topic, and go back and look at issues through our 250-year history, where Congress had debates, and then it's compromise. You have to be willing to collaborate and compromise, but you have to have discussion to do that. It would seem that the current president and his administration have increasingly ignored laws and customs, and at times he has acted as an elected monarch or dictator. A small group of wealthy donors ensured his reelection, and he has used presidential power to grant pardons that many experts are claiming the president has and will use to conspire with others in treasonable activities with impunity, which means without punishment or consequences, because we've kind of already seen that.
Yes.
We have truly never seen a systematic dismantling of our democracy and our institutions quite like there has been in the first year of this current administration.
Not this fast.
No. Unfortunately, we don't know how they may further tear away at our institutions, especially free and fair elections that allow us to have a representative government. And I want to point out there what I said earlier. Remember that states are in charge of our elections. So we should not be allowing the president or any part of the federal government interfere in our elections, even the ones for federal offices. The current Justice Department is also acting in ways never seen before and seemingly being directed by the president at times, which it should not be. And these things may sound political or partisan, but they are documented and factual.
Right. Research it. There's usually a firewall between the president and the DOJ.
The framers had concerns that this republic would not last if a couple of things were allowed to happen. And remember, they were well studied in the past. So one person that they looked at was Aristotle, who had warned that inequality brings about instability. Plato warned that demagogues, which if you don't know what demagogue means, it's a political leader who gains power or popularity by arousing emotions, passions, and prejudices of people. So Plato warned that demagogues would exploit free speech to install themselves as a tyrant or a person of authority who exercises power oppressively or unjustly, thus creating a tyranny or authoritative state. We have had a few presidents who have overstepped their constitutional power before or have done things that were unprecedented. In these past cases, they were dealt with and resolved through regular checks and balances between the three branches of government. Remember that the framers deliberately created a government that was based on separation of powers and checks and balances. These were built in to make sure none of the three branches could abuse their power without one or both of the others stepping in to stop them. But I would point out that incidents of probable presidential abuse of power have never been as abundant as they have been under the current president, and so far, we don't see Congress fulfilling their duty to check the power of this president the way they are required. And I want to interject there. I'm not saying other presidents have not abused power. They have. It's just that this president, we know, check out some of the many things that he's done so far.
Or check out
this year.
How many things are before the Supreme Court or have been on.
Or how many lawsuits there have been.
Yes.
So we have seen the federal courts attempting to check executive power, but the court system is naturally slow moving. We cannot continue to allow the corruption and excesses that we are seeing. How can we, the people, encourage our members of Congress to step up and rein in the executive branch? Keep protesting and keep calling and writing your representatives and senators. In an earlier episode, I introduced the phone app 5 Calls. I would encourage everyone to install this free app on your phone and use it daily if necessary. It is so easy to use. You enter your zip code. It gives you a list of current issues, usually surrounding either big events going on like the things in Minneapolis recently or bills that are important that are up at Congress. And then because you've entered your zip code, it automatically picks your representative and your 2 senators. It gives you right there on the screen. You just click on the direct phone number to their office, and then you can swipe your phone screen up after you've selected what, because you'll have to tell it you want to leave a message. Swipe up, and there's a script right there. You just stick your name in, the script, and off you go. Or I wrote my own script. I kind of used theirs as a sample, and I wrote it out. I did 3 calls the other day in less than 5 minutes after I had written out my script.
Since we pride ourselves in not being partisan, that this works for whatever issue, however you feel, one way or the other. It's not just an app for Democrats or an app for Republicans. It's to help all of us give our feedback to Congress and our representatives.
A couple weeks ago, when they were having a vote on a particularly contentious issue, one of our state senators voted against that issue, which even though his party was for it, and I called and left a message thanking him for voting against that issue. You don't just have to rip them all the time. You can also, if they do stand up, you can call and say
pat them on the back. Yeah, and that goes a long way.
So we are in unprecedented times and cannot really look at our history and find a time when the executive branch has done as much to dismantle our institutions in such a short time. Ultimately, we must not lose sight that we, the people, have the power. The best thing we can do right now is keep organizing and standing up to the things we see the government doing that we don't like and or see as illegal. We cannot assume that the government will automatically course correct. To do nothing right now would be a very misguided response. This is another reason the framers gave us the First Amendment protections that allow us to protest and speak out against our government. We must continue to push back against the changes that we know are wrong and not in the best interest of our nation and its people. We must take ownership and advocate for the protection of our democracy and institutions. There is strength in numbers. There is a statistical political theory that is a measuring tool known as the 3.5% rule. It contends that people-powered movements can increase the chances of pressuring the government to meet their demands, including by building broad, sustained public participation across diverse groups. This is especially true because authoritarian-minded governments try to divide the population and keep them afraid of defiance. When 3.5% of a population goes beyond protest to engage in peaceful civil disobedience and non-cooperation, these actions disrupt the system and force governmental change. The recent No Kings protests and others in the last year have us getting ever closer to the 3.5%. I think, if nothing else, if you've watched any of what's gone on in Minneapolis in the last couple weeks, we see this sustained public participation, people of all different groups out there trying to help their fellow citizens, because many people, especially minority groups, have been afraid to go out. So other people have been helping them and standing up against ICE and the Border Patrol that's there. I just don't think that they can deny when people say, well, it's like they laugh because there's going to be a protest or, that's not going to do any good. This proves they're wrong. And we are seeing more and more of it. And I think that is a good thing.
When somebody laughs because we are exercising our right to protest against anything, it immediately tells you who that person is. Right. If you're laughing at somebody exercising the right to protest at a symbol, we know everything we need to know about you.
I'd almost be willing to bet they also don't vote or anything or participate anyway.
Right, keyboard warriors.
The point is, remember your duties and responsibilities as a United States citizen. As a citizen, you have the duty, or are required by law, to obey laws, to pay taxes, to register with selective service if you're a male over 18, and serve on a jury if called to do so. Those are duties required by law. But we also have certain responsibilities as U.S. citizens that aren't required by law, but may actually be more important at a time like this. As a citizen, you're encouraged to vote in elections, stay informed about current events and political issues, participate in civic activities like protesting, etc., for example. Respect the rights and opinions opinions of others, and to be actively involved in your community. These duties and responsibilities are required to make sure society runs smoothly, the nation functions effectively, and the democratic ideals of our nation are preserved. Many experts and political activists say that active citizenship, which is what that is a key to preserving our democratic republic. It is unfortunate that there are no personal consequences for not fulfilling these responsibilities. People are not fined or punished for not doing them. I might point out, though, in a few countries, you are punished, fined for not voting. Sadly, though, many people do not understand that by not fulfilling these responsibilities, they are giving up any power they have to guide the policies that govern us. Some may say they don't want to protest or get involved because the political atmosphere is so nasty. We are at a time of vast political polarization that significantly impacts society by exacerbating or making worse the social divisions and fostering an us versus them mentality. It also leads to decreased trust in institutions and between individuals. Think again about the recent events, such as the ones in Minneapolis, where we see the videos with our own eyes. Then the administration comes out, sometimes immediately, and claims something that contradicts what we just saw with our own eyes. They claim things like the protesters are anarchists, which I heard the other day. That literally means that the protesters don't want laws or government and prefer disorder. Most of us know that this is not true. We want the protections provided by law and order, but we want it done fairly and humanely. These deep political divisions can hinder compromise and cooperation in government, leading to legislative gridlock and difficulty passing needed legislation. It can also harm mental and physical health, contributing to stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. These problems lead to a weakening of the democratic process as polarization undermines the norms of tolerance and moderation necessary for a healthy democracy, and it may discourage people from engaging. This is not what the framers hoped for. We, the people, are the principal actors in our democratic republic. The framers wanted empowered citizens, and we are empowered when we are informed. Our rights are protected, and fellow citizens and policymakers engage us in the democratic process. We must demand collaboration and leaders with decent moral character. And I had a quote from Madison in there from, I think it was from one of the Federalist Papers, where he stresses that, but I took it out, time saving. But it just emphasizes that the framers, the people that set up this government, that's what they wanted us to continue to have, is collaboration, discussion, civil discussion. Okay, so we have to work towards that. We want laws, but we want them fairly and humanely. I've seen recently several times that under the Obama administration, they actually deported a record number of illegal immigrants during his 8 years in office, but it was done legally and humanely. They weren't doing this, having ICE on the streets, and so it can be done.
Well, and I don't remember professional videographers going out at that time making propaganda movies to show to people. I don't remember it being the top story on the news on every channel every single day. And if you're watching TV and you've maybe become immune, it's, like living next to a railroad track and you don't hear the train whistle anymore, because we see these images every single day on every channel over and over and over. Something struck me and tugged at my heartstrings the other day. It really upset me as the governor of Minnesota was talking about kids who are so scared right now. They're hiding inside their house. They are scared to death to go outside. And as a human and as a parent, it breaks my heart. That's so sad. And that is not the America I grew up in. I don't ever remember hiding in my room, under my bed, or in the closet because of what was going on outside. That's so sad.
Think about people complain because schools had to, or we just knew so little about COVID, but schools ended up a lot of times being closed. And, and a lot of these kids are missing school because of that fact that they can't go out. They're scared they're going to be taken off the street, or
and you
their
make a
parents
good
are.
point. I mean, these are the same kids, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are the ones that were affected by not being to go out in society during COVID. They're still scarred from that, as are the rest of us.
We must work on improving our civil discourse or conversations. Civil discourse refers to discussing public issues or concerns among individuals or groups with different viewpoints while maintaining mutual respect, sincerely listening to the other person or people with an open mind, being willing to change your opinion, and speaking honestly. The rules for civil discourse emphasize respect for others, active listening, and focusing on ideas, not people. Participants should use a civil tone, speak honestly, ask clarifying questions, and differentiate between fact and opinion. The goal is to foster a constructive environment where different or diverse perspectives can be shared and understood, ultimately leading to a common ground or a compromise or a path forward. Civil discourse is the way for we the people and our leaders to solve public issues, to build mutual understanding, explore solutions, and foster community, even when disagreements exist. Think common good. Civil discourse should not be a contest. The goal is to promote mutual understanding with the purpose and hope of working out solutions for the common good. Civil discourse is the practice of deliberating to carefully weigh and consider matters of public concern with others in a way that seeks to expand knowledge and promote understanding. I have a great amount of respect for people, especially politicians, if they're willing to stand up and say, well, I've heard more and now I'm changing how I think about this, and I'm going to vote differently. I mean, it's rare, but we do hear people, once they've gotten more information, that are brave enough to stand up and say, I've got to vote against that.
Yeah, we should be open to evolving. I mean, we shouldn't just cut off what we learned in fourth grade and then just put down a marker and say, I never am changing. I don't ever want to hear new information, no science, no facts, nothing. This is how I feel. If that is the kind of person that is representing me, I want to vote him out.
Well, I remember, and this is not politically related, but when I was teaching at the prison and I had to teach math, one of the prisoners or teachers, I don't remember which one, taught me a different way, since math is not my real thing.
Or mine.
Taught me a different way to do fractions called the butterfly method. And of course, I knew my way I learned 50 years ago, but that method was so easy. And it's like, that'd be like me saying, no, I'd rather do it this hard way. And I'm going to teach them to do it the hard way, rather than saying, no, that's much easier. Much better.
Or sometimes it takes something personally affecting you in your life with a family member or a dear friend for you to sit back and rethink how you felt and maybe change how you feel. Sometimes it has to be personal for us to change. Evolution is a good thing.
And that kind of leads us to the last part of this. Education is also extremely important, both civics education and social education for young Americans as well as adults. It's never too old to learn. To engage civilly requires significant patience, mental effort, and emotional labor, which can be exhausting and frustrating. For adults to learn this may take extra effort. However, if we want to see change and get back to less polarization, and we want to heal our democratic republic and return to a healthy democracy as the framers had hoped for, then we the people are going to have to take the lead in making a conscious effort to return to these characteristics of healthy civil discourse. Civic education has no age limit. Encourage a friend or family member to educate themselves. Help them get started by introducing resources they can use to learn. An adult who has never been an active citizen will probably be a more difficult project. They need to be encouraged to care, especially if they enjoy the freedoms they have, especially if they have kids or grandkids for their futures. Make them feel empowered. Help them get informed. They need to understand that it is in their own self-interest to be more engaged. I will end with this reminder again from Lincoln's first inaugural address, where he said, quote, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory, stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this land, will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature, end quote. I challenge our listeners to not give up. Keep up the effort to defend our rights, keep protecting our marginalized friends and neighbors, and make the powerful take notice. Can we find our better angels? Our next episode is planned to be the one about the evolution of political parties, which, as we said earlier, we actually already had done and ready to go.
Yeah.
So barring any more events that make us put that off again, that will be our next episode. But please remember to contact us on our Plain Civics Facebook page or via email at plaincivicspodcast@gmail.com. No punctuation, all small letters, plaincivicspodcast@gmail.com.
If you enjoy what we're doing, the best compliment and way that you can thank us is to find someone in your life and tell them about this podcast. There's nothing better. We can promote it all day long, but the best promotion is when someone you trust comes to you and says, hey, I've listened to this podcast. They're fair. They keep it at a level where most people can understand it. Check them out. That's the best compliment that you can pay to us.
And especially if you have one of those adults that's not involved, a little bit skittish about getting involved, or they're not sure, have them listen to some of our episodes that explain some of it, like this one and a few of our past episodes that maybe will help them feel more empowered.
And maybe sit down and listen to it with them and pause. And, if they have questions, then, maybe that will get more people.
Or have a discussion with them.
Absolutely, a civil discussion.
Exactly.
I hear the bell. That means it's time for the pop quiz.
Bueller.
Last episode's question was, if both the president and the vice president can no longer serve, who becomes president? And if you said the Speaker of the House, then you are correct.
All right, so there you have it. Speaker of the House and Bobby, what's the next question?
This episode's question from the U.S. naturalization test is, who is the commander-in-chief of the military?
Okay, Bobby, thank you again. This is one that you turned around on a dime because of what we're seeing in the news and continue to see in the news. Again, we'll get to the political parties. That'll be coming up in 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. But for now, that is it for this episode of Plain Civics, breaking down the basics. No politics, just facts. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
This is Plain Civics. Join us for the journey as we break down the basics of how government works so you can make the government work for you.